Hi and welcome to Wire and Clay. My name is Taz and this is the second process video I'm uploading to YouTube. As you can see, I've already started. This is quite a small little sculpt that I did a while ago using Super Sculpey, the original very soft beige coloured Super Sculpey. As you can see, I normally roll out my Super Sculpey in advance, especially with smaller sculpts, just so that it's easy to grab a small piece and to add to the actual sculpture. Today, when I did this, I decided to do a little skeleton, little skull, and it was the first time I've ever done a skull, and it was great fun. I've always had a fascination with the skeleton and skulls in general, and just wanted to make a relief, as if it's like a tile, as if it's coming out from within. This is one of my favourite tools. It's a ball-ended stylus, and I've got them in different sizes. You can see some of the blue ones which have larger heads, and wooden handle ones which are a lot smaller, which is a lot nicer dealing with little miniature sculptures like this one. And the one I'm using right now is actually a tiny loop tool with a brass handle which I made myself. I'll probably upload how to make one because it's so easy to do. It's simple brass tubing, a fine wire that you shape, and then putting it back into the tube, a little bit of super glue and some Super Sculpey around it just to hold it in place, and you've got yourself a very simple but handy tool that really you can buy online, but it's so cheap and easy to make it yourself, and at least then you can choose the dimensions and you can make a whole range of them, larger loops, thinner loops, and even weird angled loops, just to get into those small spaces. Now, although I'm using Super Sculpey Original, I do use the firmer one and even the medium firmness. If you've never used a Super Sculpey, I highly recommend it. It's a polymer based clay, and it's the original one is very soft and easy to and very malleable and easy to sculpt with. The firm one is a little bit, well, the firm one is a lot firmer and a little bit crumbly, so you sort of have to knead it to begin with. It's a little bit hard to just add straight off. It's sort of when you knead it in your fingers, the warmth of your hands and rolling it softens it up a little bit, and then you can apply it. The medium one is as it is. It's the middle ground. I know that some people back in the day, when there was only the original and the firm, used to actually mix those two in a pasta roller machine to actually get a medium hardness, and that can still work now, but luckily Super Sculpey twigged that some people prefer a middle ground and release a medium one, and I'll show you how to use some of my sculpts using the medium firmness, hopefully in another video. If you're wondering what's in the pot, the tomato ketchup pot that you sometimes can get in hotels, in the rare occasions I'm at a hotel and I see them serving either jam jars or ketchup in these small little jars, I always make a point to actually take one with me. They're really handy to keep small things there, and also liquids. When I sculpt, you can use a whole range of liquids to actually soften the clay, but I use 90% alcohol to soften it, and that's what I keep in there. You can use other liquids to smooth out Sculpey. I just prefer 90% alcohol because it's readily available and very inexpensive, but you can use lighter fluid, white spirit, or even a little bit of baby oil, as long as you don't put too much on, otherwise your sculpture will just melt. I was sculpting with a wooden plaque that I just cut up quickly, but I realized I wanted a bigger base to work with. I really wanted to actually sculpt something around the skull. At that point I wasn't sure what it was, so I got a sample tile from a tile shop, and used that to actually carry on with the sculpting. I would recommend that, to actually have something quite hard, something you can put in the oven and not worry about it too much. And yeah, you go to any tile shop and they'll give you free samples, small little samples of those tiles, and they're really handy when it comes to sculpting small objects. Now, unlike the first process video which I did with Grandpa Frankie, I realized very quickly that the webcam was really not very good, and so I've opted to use my iPhone to actually record this. So although it's better, it's not quite there yet, and maybe I'll try and upgrade and get something better and upgrade my lighting, which is pretty appalling at the moment, but we'll get there slowly but surely. As you can see, that loop tool that I made is fantastic when it comes to actually detailing in the teeth. Probably going to see me do this quite a few times, because I sort of went back and forth getting rid of the teeth and sculpting around it, and so yeah, this is a bit of I'm going to repeat it a few times. Had to actually center it. I realized that the skull wasn't dead straight, so that's quite handy when you have a flat razor to actually cut things in and slide it underneath the actual Super Sculpey if you need to actually move it. This is the rake tool that I've mentioned in Grandpa Frankie, and it's so handy because it really does smooth out the clay quite well. After looking at the skull for a while, I sort of got this idea of having it as if it's pulling out of fabric or silk, or something a little bit more gruesome like skin, as if it's actually pushing out. I remember watching The Huntsman, a sort of modern take of the classic sort of Snow White story, fairy tale, and Charlize Theron, she played the villain in the movie. But in the second one, she came out of this fabric as if she was coming out of the mirror, and this metallic sort of stretched fabric across her face, and it was amazing. It was a fantastic scene. Movie not that great, but that scene was sort of stuck in my head. I quite liked it, and so I thought I wanted to repeat something like that, get that kind of feel to it. Of course, to begin with, I just started sculpting it without references, and then I quickly realized actually this is not looking as realistic as I wanted it, so I highly recommend it. Always make sure you get references and get enough references to actually work from. And so yeah, references are very important. I normally try and grab a series of photos and make a collage in Photoshop and just have that in the background, just to sort of when I get stuck or want to get a little bit of inspiration or want to get a little bit of detailing, I can just look at a picture and get a rough idea of what the shape needs to be. Now, although Photoshop is an extremely powerful software, it is a little bit clunky when trying to make collages, and I was doing some research and I've come across this software called PureRef. I've only played with it, but it's quite impressive how quickly you can make a collage. By the way, this is not a sponsored ad or anything, it's just something I've been looking into. Once I was happy with the shape of the sculpt and happy with the wrinkles and the ripples of the skin, needed to actually smooth it all out and get rid of all the little harsh details, and I used, again from the small little pot, some alcohol, and brushing it on smoothed it all out and made it a lot smoother. It also sort of added very fine wrinkles onto it, which again makes it look so much more like skin, as if it's been stretched and wrinkles collected. I was talking to a friend of mine, Saiko-san, and we decided to actually do a smaller con. It's the London Anime and Gaming Con. It's based in a university, I think, but we've never been there, we've never done it, and really just wanted to break up the year by having something fun to go and do together. And it really isn't just about the sort of selling it and making money, but it's also just having targets and aiming to have something new to show at the con. that's sort of my motivation and what keeps me sort of interested. You might be wondering what I'm wearing on my head, and it's a magnifying helmet, just to actually help with the smaller details that I'm adding. Once I was happy with the actual sculpt, I got my trusty toothpick and went back in there to put as many details. This is the part which I actually really enjoy doing. It's where you sort of can tell a story, can also just explain where that sculpture's been. And especially if older skulls, if you look at them, they've got these natural cracks that run around the nose, around the brow and across the forehead. Just by putting those small details, that sculpture to me comes to life and makes it far more interesting and lifelike. It's actually quite impressive to think that the skull is made out of not just one big bone, but a number of separate bones, 22 in total, and only one of them moves. And those are the cracks that you can actually see later on when the bones join together. Just trimming off the edges and getting it looking as smooth and as smart as possible. And I think this is it, really. I hope you like it. It's a little bit creepy, but I also decided to paint it the next day, and here are just a couple of pictures of it. Decided to go for a Indiana Jones effect by having it sort of really dirty and grimy and sort of tribal. And that's it. Hope you liked the video. If you did, click on the like and the subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Bye.